Well, guys, let's talk about what's going on this weekend, and I think tops on the list, for me anyway, is a trip to Colorado Springs and the beautiful World Arena and UND and Colorado College. Brought CC off to, well, they won their first 2 games under Mike Havlin, their new head coach. It'd be interesting to see what changes, if any, he's made with that program and how they attack things on the ice. So I guess we'll just find out. But they did just nip Alabama Huntsville twice.
They did. They scored a couple of late goals to beat Huntsville. The one encouraging sign for them is I think some of their younger players last year were their better players, so they can hope that they develop a little bit. We have no idea. They have no idea what they're going to get in goal because Josh Thornbert played nearly every game for them last year. They got a couple of young guys in there. Who knows what we'll see there. I think defensively, that's strangely enough, that might be their strength. That was their weakness for so many years. They had these high-flying forwards, and their D core just killed them. But now with Jacob Slavin and some of their other, they lost Gustav Olofsson in the off season. Peter Stojkovic seems to score 1 goal a year, and it's always against UND. So. They'll look out for him. But it's a team I picked last in the league. I think they have way too many question marks right now. But like you said, it'll be interesting to see if there's any changes with that program.
Last time I talked to Mike Havlin, he was wading through all the NCAA rules and regulations, and it was just blowing him away because he comes from professional
He's a
hockey,
pro coach, yep.
And he was like, really? I get 2 hours a week or whatever it was of practice on.
Bigger sheet there too, right?
It is a monster sheet.
Yeah.
It's just huge. I mean, it's supposed to be 200 by 100, right?
It looks like the biggest rink in college hockey.
It really does. It looks bigger than Mariucci.
Yeah.
It's just, wow, it's big.
Lots of skating.
So who Nick Schmaltz should like that if he has some extra time and space to make plays. I think that'll be good for him. That big ice sheet was so good for CC for so many years, and I think last year it wasn't real good for them, being at home. So we'll see how that goes down there.
The women are at home. WCHA play against Minnesota Duluth, and coming off a pretty good weekend at Minnesota State Mankato and Duluth. Everybody, they're in the top 4, right? Mm-hmm. Isn't it Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Dakota, Minnesota Duluth, the ones you look to usually?
That's traditionally been the top 4. I think Ohio State could make a push to get in that group this year, but Duluth, they had 7 players transfer out after last year. They have some new faces in the lineup. They did get a player back from the Canadian national team, so that should help them a little bit. Last weekend on Saturday night, they got a shootout win over Minnesota, so that has to give them a little bit of confidence coming here, but it should be an interesting matchup. It used to be Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Duluth, the big 3. Now the last couple of years, UND's knocked Duluth out of that big 3, so to speak, because they finished ahead of them all those years. So I'm sure Duluth wants to reestablish themselves in that position.
The 2 teams, from what I understand, really aren't very fond of each other.
No.
There's something going on.
Yeah.
It's
Wait
been
a minute.
that way.
Nobody's very fond of Minnesota.
That's true.
Coach anyway, right?
That's true.
I think that's where that stems from.
I don't think there has been any love lost for several years, even going back to the Chantal Rivard era. I remember talking to players that was the one weekend, we always talk about Minnesota-North Dakota rivalry. You talk to the women's hockey players, they talk about the Minnesota-Duluth games. So it'll be an interesting one here in Ralph Engelstad Arena.
Volleyball gets to be home finally, Paul.
Finally home and a big one. It was with the team that they shared the Big Sky regular season conference crown last year in Portland State. I don't know if Portland State's out of the gate like they typically would like to be at this point in the season, but they're still a very formidable program, and it's certainly a bounce back game for North Dakota coming off a tough one at Idaho State. So getting Portland State in the Betty on Thursday going to be big for UND.